The North Korean nuclear threat will be a major topic at the upcoming G20 summit in Germany this week. President Trump is on his way there now, but first he's stopping in Warsaw, Poland, where he'll meet with the leaders of Poland and Croatia. The president is expected to get a warm welcome there from a sympathetic right-wing government. But huge protests await President Trump and other leaders in Hamburg, Germany, host city for this year's G20 summit. German police are on high alert. CBS News White House and Foreign Affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan is in Warsaw, Poland, and joins us now. Margaret, why did the president choose Poland?
Well, Dana, this is an important country that so many U.S. presidents have decided to deliver major policy addresses in. But for President Trump, it accomplishes two things. One, it gives him a chance to restate what he didn't say on that last trip to Europe, which is his commitment to the collective security of all NATO members, Poland being one of them, particularly in the face of looming Russian aggression on the continent. Secondly, it allows him, as you mentioned, to visit with a fairly friendly government. He's going to get a warm reception here in Poland, unlike what he has received elsewhere in Europe and what he's likely to receive in Hamburg, in part because Poland views itself as such an important ally of the United States in terms of needing that NATO support because they do face Russia on their eastern flank, but also because they are such an ultra-conservative new government here that has voiced a lot of the similar sort of populist nationalist ideas that President Trump ran on. In addition, the new government here is viewed as sort of Eurosceptic, which, while the president is here reaching out to Europe once again, he's sure to ruffle some feathers because at least the Polish leaders here would like to think that he is endorsing their line of nationalism. And it's one that has, in many ways, defied the standards of other European Union partners.
The president's spending less than 24 hours, and then it is the G20 summit. And it seems like all the attention surrounding that summit is on Trump's face-to-face meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And we know that this is no longer just a pull-aside. This is a one-on-one formal bilateral meeting. What do you take from that fact alone?
Well, that's another reason why this stop here in Poland is symbolic, because it underscores a country that feels a significant threat from Russian aggression. What we don't know is in that private meeting with Vladimir Putin if President Trump will reassert that idea of the United States having the back of its European partners to push back against it. Will he reassert the U.S. position that sanctions are going to continue to sit on Russia until they back out of that, what some would call annexed territory, some would at least call military interference in Ukraine? But what's so puzzling in many ways about the president's strategy here is that the White House says they don't have one. In fact, when White House officials briefed reporters and were asked what is the top of your agenda, they said this is really going to be whatever the president wants to talk about. Now that's a gamble because Vladimir Putin, Russia's president, has been ruling that country for well over 15 years. He is not only a seasoned negotiator, but he is one who is known very much so for being able to play mind games or drive the conversation, at least in his direction, in these meetings. So walking in and not saying very clearly publicly what the positioning is going to be raises some questions. So perhaps we will hear more from the president when he speaks to the Polish people tomorrow, perhaps some language about NATO and standing by it in a way that would be viewed as a strong pushback against Vladimir Putin. But we haven't heard from the White House if the president will acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is that ongoing probe into Russian election interference, something that President Obama confronted Vladimir Putin about in the fall, right before the election that brought Donald Trump to power.
It may be as simple as a no. I know you said there's no strategy, and we've heard this for a week now, no strategy going in or agenda set. Is there even a goal for this administration in that meeting that we know of?
Look, this is the public posturing by the White House. One would have to think with people like General H.R. McMaster that there is some agenda that the president is going to be asked to follow. But the thing is, you don't know if he will stick to it or if he's going to go with his gut, as he likes to say, and really just sort of tried to strike up a friendship with Vladimir Putin in the same way that the president said he tried to do with China's leader Xi Jinping at that Mar-a-Lago summit.
You mentioned President Xi there, also a meeting coming up at the G20 summit with him. Do we know what the message will be as far as North Korea and that recent missile launch?
Well, this is going to be the second face-to-face meeting with Xi Jinping, China's leader, and it's not likely to be as friendly as that first one, that weekend at Mar-a-Lago, the president's resort. But what we know from his public posturing is that President Trump is really trying to double down on this campaign of shame, sort of trying to embarrass Xi Jinping by saying, look, you have the ability to control North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, and you're choosing not to. That's what he's implying in these tweets today, pointing to what he says is increased trade with North Korea rather than a decision to cut off its client, essentially, because North Korea's regime continues to be propped up by trade with Beijing. China doesn't want instability on its border, and so while they are trying to manage the problem, President Trump has been urging publicly for Xi Jinping to take a stronger position to really force negotiations to begin. But look, President Trump's also going to face some pushback on that front from South Korea's president, who he will also meet with in Hamburg, Germany at the G20, and with Japan's leader, who they favor some form of confrontation leading to negotiations, but are less ready to use the kind of aggressive rhetoric that we have heard from American leaders in the past few weeks, who say this is an immediate threat. This is not something you can wait around for lengthy negotiations to resolve. It has to be dealt with now because, as we learned with that ICBM, the North Koreans are quickly moving forward towards having the kind of launch capability that could bring a nuclear-tipped missile onto U.S. territory. And that's not something President Trump would like to say happened on his watch.
And obviously, Margaret, those are the big topics that everybody is talking about right now. Anything else that the president is hoping to accomplish or do at the G20 summit this week?
Absolutely. Well, here in Poland, the president wants to underscore trade, right? This is part of the economic nationalism that he ran on. He's going to be pushing this idea that energy trade is going to be picking up between Poland and the U.S. with liquefied natural gas, I should say. And in Germany, he will also be talking about what he tweeted about a little bit this morning, which is that idea of unfair trade deals. That's a hint at a conversation that's expected to be had around steel tariffs, steel dumping. That gets you back to China because of what some would say is an oversupply of steel on the market that's hurting other producers and consumers and unfairly advantaging China. And so those are the kind of trade topics that you're likely to hear come up over the next few days. But of course, that sit down with Vladimir Putin and that face-to-face with Xi Jinping are going to be where all the cameras are pointed and all the reporters are focused, because they just are such high-stakes diplomacy right now.
No doubt about it. Margaret Brennan in Warsaw. Margaret, thank you.